P. Diddy, the humiliation ritual expert, as I will now be referring to him as, because I believe that he himself has done what all the demonic entities or the demonic overlords of this world do to hide the skeletons in his closet, and that is to get you to humiliate yourself, have proof of that humiliation, and therefore deter you from ever speaking up about the sick, twisted, and heinous things that have happened to you. That's what we're going to be talking about today, because there's so many interesting things coming to light, and I'm glad people are finally talking about it. And now that I can see that this isn't just going to be another one of those times where everybody's like going to be upset for like 3 seconds and then forget, I'm like, cool, so we're actually ready to go there. Let's go there. So guys, stay tuned. I've got a whole bunch of videos I'm going to be recording. We're going to be talking P. Diddy. We're going to be talking Cat Williams. We're going to be talking about the entertainment industry, Hollywood. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, okay? So stay tuned. You guys already know. Welcome to the winning team. Don't forget to subscribe if this is your first time here. So as I've been, looking into the research of things, a couple of things have stuck out to me in particular about what I notice as trends in the industry. And today it just kind of all clicked together as to how it works. So one of them is the drug use, right? So a lot of the celebrities now, when we are hearing information, and the way that the narrative is rewritten for us is that these celebrities are just on drugs because, the sex, drugs, money, alcohol thing is just the rock and roll lifestyle, right? That's how it's kind of presented to us, that this is just what they do. And we never really think about why, but I've actually been thinking a lot about why. I've been thinking a lot about just the overall abuse of substances as those of us as humans of today. I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been talking about it a lot with God recently, which is why I've been talking even about addiction and stuff like that. And I realized that the reason why it's being used a lot of times in entertainment, especially because of the likes of people like P. Diddy, it's to get you out of your sober-minded state, which is actually kind of interesting because even in the Bible, God tells us to be of a sober mind, right? And the reason for that is when you're out of a sober mind, if you're inebriated, if you're on high on drugs, if you're on whatever, the interesting thing is, obviously, we all have appreciated that we may be more inclined to do something we wouldn't normally do, or we may just get involved in something because we're in a completely different mental state and therefore get involved in those things. So, of course, if you want to humiliate somebody and you want to get them to do something that they wouldn't normally do, that you can then hold on to them against them for the future, the first thing, obviously, the easiest thing to do would be to get them on drugs, if you think about it, because then they're probably going to do it somewhat willingly. You're not going to have to force them, because we will all support somebody who has been a victim of things that were done that were not consensual, right? So if there's proof that it's not consensual, then that's when we're all like, yeah, okay, you know what? That was a crime that was forced on you, whatever. But if there's a tape, and in the tape you're seen willfully participating and doing things as an adult, right? Then at this point, no one's going to be saying to you, like, you're going to be blamed. People are going to look at you and say, what were you doing? Like, why were you doing that? Right? And so I believe that that's a part of what Diddy is doing, because now we've discovered, courtesy of this lawsuit that's coming out from, I believe his name's Rodney, who was producing with Diddy, and he talks about how a lot of the things that they were being done is taking people, allegedly, is these concoctions of drugs and everything that they would get people on in the industry and stuff, to then get them to do things with, say, underage boys and girls, which is just, again, I'm not going to talk about the children just yet, guys, but I am going to talk about the children in a later video. But, and using those things basically to get intel, to get information on people, so that if he has a video of you doing XYZ, then you're not going to speak out. It's kind of like the same thing that Kanye was saying, that he can say the things that he's saying because he hasn't killed anybody. So what is he suggesting when he said that? And I've said this before. If he's suggesting that he can speak out because he hasn't killed anyone, is he suggesting that other people have killed people? This is what I'm trying to say. Because even with this whole Diddy thing again, I won't even go into the killing with Diddy thing. So I feel like this man, if he has really done as much stuff as all this stuff that's coming out about him is saying he has, is everybody following what I'm trying to say? That means that this guy is one of the experts of the humiliation ritual. And do you know who else I think is? Jeffrey Epstein. And I say is because that man, I believe, is alive. And I'm willing to die on that hill, by the way. I am willing to die on the hill that Jeffrey Epstein is alive. And whenever people ask me, what is a hill you're willing to die on? No matter where it is, I'm saying Jeffrey Epstein is still alive. Jeffrey Epstein is still alive because I refuse for him to get forgotten and left in the past and be like, oh, he was horrible, but he's gone now. No. And I don't want to hear, no, don't speak ill of the dead. Were you really going to say that about Jeffrey Epstein? I didn't think so. So this is what they do. And this is, you guys got to understand something. We need to stop thinking that the world is a good place. Sorry, guys. I know I always say this, but I find the optimism of humans insufferable. I'll be honest, because people be like, oh, I'm sure that's not really happening. And I'm sure, and I'm sure, and I'm sure. And I'm like, yeah, and it's the fact that you really think it's not happening is exactly why they're able to get away with it. I'm not trying to be a pessimist person to try and doom and gloom everybody. I'm trying to say if we don't consider the options of what's there, then how else are we supposed to find things out, especially when we're dealing with a lot of victims who cannot, in one way or another, speak up for themselves, in particular, children, right? How are we going to know? And this is the problem I have in society as well, that because now we hate kids, I don't. But if you ask me as an educator, somebody who's taught hundreds of kids of all ages in many different subjects and areas and things, right? And spoken with hundreds of parents, therefore, as well as somebody who exists on this same planet and on this same internet that we all live in, I've come to the overall conclusion that the adult population hates children. That's the truth. Because I'm like, you're so quick to, and it's funny because even I was just listening to Monique, who was on Shay, what that guy's name? Shannon Sharp's podcast or whatever as well. And she went on after Cat Williams. And one of the things that she was saying, and this is so true, because this is what we do in society, it's backwards. We will sit there and say, oh, we want to be in support of the children. We want to be in support of the people that we that are victims of these heinous crimes. But we're also the same society that when there's that one uncle that's uncomfortable, that makes your daughter or son feel uncomfortable, that you will turn a blind eye because you don't want to be the person to ruin Thanksgiving by telling that person that they can't come because you don't want your child to be uncomfortable. We're the same people that will say, oh yeah, we always knew that so-and-so was weird, but we just turned a blind eye. Like, so we don't. And they're also the same people who at the same given time will be leaving kids freely on the internet, right? To just roam on there. Like, I've been absolutely completely shocked, bewildered and disgusted at some of the things I've seen on the internet. The amount of times I see a 9-year-old kid being like, I'm only 9 years old and I think such and such and such and such about some adult things that we're talking about. When I say adult, I don't necessarily mean just like sexual. I mean just adult content as a whole. Things that kids should be thinking about. I'm like, when I was 9 years old, I was like playing outside with my friends. Like, I don't know, doing whatever. I was building a freaking fort. I was building a fort, for goodness sake, and making stuff out of paper mache and all this. And these kids of today are 9 years old on their phones. And then people be like, oh no, the youth of today has just gone downhill. I'm like, yeah, because parenting doesn't exist anymore. And even just protection of kids as a whole doesn't exist anymore, because we're either just turning a blind eye because we don't want to become uncomfortable in our selfish selves, or we're just leaving the kids completely unsupervised because we can't be bothered to do the job that we set ourselves up for, even though we are the ones who chose to open our legs in the first place. So I'm just kind of like, how is it that we don't deep down all realize that we are the reason that people like P. Diddy and whoever are getting away with what they're getting away with? Because my thing is always, where are these kids even coming from? And I don't know if you guys are aware of this. I have done a whole long thing about child trafficking, a whole 6-episode long series that you guys should watch, of a victim of real life child trafficking in the entertainment industry and around the world, connecting all the way from here in the United Kingdom to the United States. You guys need to go and check that out, by the way. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen with these things, like a lot of the stuff that's going on in this world, it's all connected together. I don't know if you realize that. So the fact that kids just go missing, even like I was saying to you guys, there is one young lady, really, there's two, in America has one and we have one, ours is Madeleine McCann, of young girls who, when they were like super, super duper young, like toddlerish age, went completely missing. Right? And they were big news. I cannot remember the name of the young girl in the United States. If anybody remembers, please put her name in the comments. But in the UK, it was Madeleine McCann. These things happen. Why is it that we don't hear more about lost children? There's a question for you, because a lot of kids go missing. A lot of kids actually go missing. Where do they go missing? And the reason why I bring up these two girls, I wish I could remember the other girl's name, is because Lou M. Taylor, the CEO, the creator of TriStar sports and entertainment group. She manages athletes and artists, right, in the entertainment industry. She's another one of these big dogs at the top, like P. Diddy, right? The one who's responsible for managing Britney Spears, Travis Scott. The list goes on. Best buddies with who? Kris Jenner. She has been seen in some images or someone looking like her to have been with these girls. Do you guys see where I'm going? These kids that are going missing, these kids that are just doing whatever, this is what's happening to them. They're ending up in these places. It's not that they're just being taken, because I love how the entertainment industry does so well to convince us that the biggest people we should be worried about is some bald-headed, tall, psychopathic looking dude that drives a van down your road, who more than likely is probably just going around doing his job and living his life. And then the people that you trust, it's like when people were saying that, who was it? I can't remember which. Oh yeah, Jimmy Savile. I think it was Jimmy Savile in the UK, and he was like a trusted like radio star or whatever. I can't remember exactly what he did, but something like that. He was like a trusted popular personality. Parents were coming to see him and then leaving their kids with him in his green room alone, and the parents would leave. So at what point are we here wondering what's happening to the kids? Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, what point are we here wondering, like, how these things are happening? Because that's my other thing. When I was hearing about this P. Diddy thing or whatever, I'm like, who are these kids? And this is especially why I bet you this information can't get out, and these people who've been involved in these rituals don't want to get this information out, because God forbid we start to see these kids that we have gone missing. God forbid we find Madeleine McCann. God forbid we find all these kids and we realize that they were being brought to the industry, and that the industry is the very thing that is trying to do this crazy activity. This is what I think people don't understand. And this is what I'm trying to wake everybody else up to, while we're all busy trying to ignore the thing that we all love to do. Like, oh, I'm sure that's not happening. That's why I think it's a privilege. It is a privilege for us to sit there and say, oh, I don't think that's happening. I'm sure that can't be what's happening. The fact that you don't even know for certain if it is or it isn't is a privilege, because there are people out there who don't ever get to that point. Like the young woman who's in the series that I did of child trafficking, and she was explaining how even now she was like, she's probably about 30ish now. She's on the run. She's completely on the run because she can't come out with anything. Because if she comes out with anything, then she's going to be found to, they're already chasing for her because they know that she has real life proof of what they've been doing. That she can prove to people, because this is what they've done. And this is what the devil has done so well. Because you know why I believe it's the devil? Because this is his expertise, the law, right? The law. It's the devil who holds the law against us, right? It's the devil who says, you're a sinner, and God, you need to, goes up to God and says, you need to send them to hell because according to your law, they've done wrong, so they need to do this. The same thing he does on earth. He's like, I'm going to hold you to the law. That's why Jesus fulfilled the law, so we were no longer under the law. But we won't get into that right now. So there is hope at the end of the tunnel, of course. But that's why this whole legal system is set up that way. Because now it's like, unless you get somebody charged, unless you can actually follow the process all the way through start to finish and get people into charged and bring evidence, people can get away with a lot nowadays. I've literally been speaking to this guy who is a detective in the United Kingdom, in one of the worst places in all of this country, and who has worked on cases to do with, graping and, those kinds of things. And it is fascinating to see how crazy it is in favor a lot of the time of the suspects. The system is, because they have to be given the due process, the fair process through to, in order to go to court. So there's certain things that they can't do as the police. They might have certain information in front of them, but they have to have justified how they got this information. They have to make sure, like looking after the people that, one of the things he was saying to me, which I thought was absolutely insane, is he was like, we have to treat the suspects like almost sometimes it feels like better than the victims, because we can't be seen to have had any kind of preferential treatment for the victim, because you're innocent until proven guilty. So I could have seen and know all the information about what this person has done to this other person. We could have had the DNA and everything, but I'm the one who has to bring them, ask them if they would like a drink when they come in to be interviewed. I'm the one who has to do this, that, and the other. I'm like, this is so backwards, isn't it? That's because that's the society we live in, because that's how the enemy, who's the king of this world, has built it to be, that it is built in favor so that, and it's funny because this guy is not even a believer like in the Lord like I am, but even nevertheless, I was thinking this is exactly what I would have expected, right? And the system is built in favor of you having to, as a victim, being at a disadvantage over the perpetrator. And then on top of the system doing that, we do it. Like I said, a kid says something and people go, oh, I don't know. Do you know how many things, parents in general, when they ask me, like, when they're having issues with their kids or they find stuff out, they'll be like, what do you recommend I do with my child? I'm like, believe them. Believe whatever they tell you. Rather believe your child who you brought into this world than believe somebody else, because guess what? It's always the people. Why do you think it's always the people that are the most trusted in society that are the ones doing the crimes? Because of course it's going to be them. Do you think that the devil is going to go and pull out somebody else that you already suspect, that bold dude who drives the van down the road, right? Do you think he's going to go and choose him, who you already think looks scary? Because of course, if your kid says that weird guy was doing this, you're going to believe them. If your kid says my uncle, if your kid says the teacher, the kid says the pastor, if your kid says whoever, you don't want to believe it now, because it's like, why would this person do this? Exactly. Hello, these are called wolves in sheep's clothing. That's the point. The enemy is the great deceiver. So this is why I talk about this stuff, and this is why I include the godly element to it, because that's supposed to be the point. The whole point is the truly heinous people in this world are getting away with it because they're playing a very, very intelligent game. And that is called manipulation of the mind. You look at something, you want to trust it, right? That's why people are so even quick now with R. Kelly, right? To be trying to justify, oh, do we separate the artist from the music? What do you mean? I thought we all hated people who did crimes like, against children and stuff. But as soon as, now because you like him, and now because you grew up with his music, and now because he had all these great albums, and he even did a gospel album, I'm hearing preachers talking about, I was finished when I was listening. This is why I can't handle the Christian community at the moment. If you guys want to know my thoughts on the Christian community and see how we're debunking a lot of the lies of the Christians and the fake Christians and the hypocrites and the Pharisees and Sadducees of today, check out my Book of Acts playlist, because it's going down in there. We're dismantling religion, and we are reestablishing what God actually intended, right? Which is quite far from a lot of what's happening today. But imagine me watching this thing, and I've got two men of God. This one's a pastor and has a YouTube channel. The other one's got a YouTube channel. I don't know if he's a pastor, but he's in ministry. And they'll be here like, oh, what do we do about R. Kelly? Oh, well, he did have that one gospel album. I'm not going to lie, it's good. So maybe we should be talking about separating the artist from the art from the artist. I'm like, sir, if it was your daughter, would you be talking about separating the art from the artist? No, because you're in a place of privilege where you get to try and be doing these calculations, working out if you think that this is something that's worth doing something about. Well, do you see what I'm saying? That's something society doesn't care about children. Society doesn't care about children. I'm 100% convinced society does not care about children anymore. That's how I truly feel. Because if we did, even if we just cared about people, we wouldn't be so quick to just say, brush things off. Do you know how many times something has happened with kids? And let's even talk about this. Oh, should we even go there? Should we go there? Let's go there. Let's talk about the school shooters, right? Let's talk about school shootings even. Because every time these school shooting stories come up and everybody's like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to get rid of guns in America and all this. And I'm just like, whatever, right? Do you know what I look into? I look into the lack of support that was there for the very clear red flags that were happening in these kids who then turned out to become school shooters. I'm like, but didn't we see, like, there was one school shooter I remember who was in a particular program, had been off the program for like a year or a year and a half, and even been on medication. And people knew that they had issues. Almost every single time, both the family members and the school were aware that these kids had issues. So when adults now are acting like, oh no, I don't know what to do. I have to prepare my kid for shootings because we don't know. It could just come from nowhere. No, it's not freaking going to come from nowhere, because nothing comes from nowhere. Nothing comes from nowhere. It's not even scientific for nothing to come from nowhere, because even science says energy cannot be created nor destroyed. That's scientific. That's the scientific law of science. That's a law of science. So I'm not throwing ideas out there and some airy fairy, like whatever things that I'm thinking of. I'm just taking the facts for what it is, for what we're all agreeing is supposed to be purely logical thinking, which as a teacher, I know that people don't think logically because that's why people struggle with algebra. It's so funny because I was thinking about this. Algebra is the easiest of all the sciences. Between science and maths, between chemistry, physics, and maths, I don't like biology. I'll just be honest, excuse me. I can do it, but I don't like it. I promise you algebra is the easiest. The easiest. You know why everybody finds it difficult? Because it's logical. And we're not taught logical thinking and we don't think logically anymore. All I say to the students, like 70% of the time is, think logically. We haven't even established a definition, but just the sure idea of what logic is gets the kids so far ahead of the game. We'll be sitting there and an algebraic question, they're like, I don't know how to do it. Even this happened to me the other day. The student was like, oh, I know that for this, I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to use an equation. I can't remember the equation. And I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? Think logically. And do you think that the student ever had to actually go back and find this equation? No, because logically, they were able to work out what would make sense to do. I was like, exactly. God gave us these brains that actually work so well, but then we go against them because of what? Because we want to be comfortable in society because of herd mentality. Herd mentality is another big one. We don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. We don't want to, like I was saying, you don't want to ruin Thanksgiving. You don't want to ruin Christmas. You don't want to ruin whatever. You don't want to ruin this. So you'd rather that person that you so-called love. This is why I think love, the way the world is talking about it, doesn't exist anyway. Like, that's why people are like, oh yeah, love is hard. Like, love isn't worth it. Most of you are not even walking in love anyway. So don't worry. Whatever you're doing, it ain't love. Trust me. Because it's like, if you love that person, are you really going to go ahead and ignore the things that they are saying? If you really love them, if you truly love them. No, you're not. You're going to act on the things that are happening because it's like, wow, that's my one chance. It's my one opportunity. This is why even in life, I feel like a lot of the times people will say, oh, well, what is God and where is God in the suffering in the world? I'm like, God is there when he is putting us as his hands and feet there to do something when we see something going wrong. If you want to know where God is right now, he's right here in this presence with all of us right now. Well, you where you are and me where I am, because he's here putting it onto my heart to say, you need to speak to the people. The people need to, like, I'm trying to do something about this, but you guys are ignoring it. What more do you want him to do? And let's be honest, we have free will with the Lord, right? He gives us a choice. So do you mean to tell me, if you are one to choosing willfully ignoring something, is God supposed to turn around and say, oh, but you know what? I know you guys don't want to do anything because you don't want to ruffle the feathers. So let me go against your will. Because if he was to go against your will, then you'll be calling him a tyrant now. Now God is a tyrant and God is problematic because, yeah, you want him to go against your will when it comes to kids. But then what if he's like, well, I'm going to go against your will when you decide that you want to go around and be a hoe. I'm going to make sure that you're not able to, or you, whatever the things you want to be in this life. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to go against your will and decide that actually I don't think you deserve to be rich because I don't think you're going to be good with money. You wouldn't like it then, would you? You wouldn't like it if God... So this is what I'm trying to say as well when people are with God. I'm like, you guys don't even... Like, we don't, including me, even deserve the Lord, actually, to be honest with you. And he loves us. And he's the one person who actually does love people and actually does do things regardless and doesn't mind ruffling feathers and doesn't mind upsetting people if it means protecting people. Because that's why so many people... It's even Cat Williams was even saying the same thing. Why is he speaking up? He's like, because I know that God will protect me. And I know that the Lord that I know, and I can't just sit back and turn into one of these people. Because even Shannon was asking him, oh, are you not worried about like how this is going to affect your money? So do you see what I'm saying about the thinking? We actually care more about our own selfish desires than we do the things we like to think we care about. I'm just calling it out as it is. We're selfish, ultimately. And that's why these P. Diddy's and these, this, and the others, this is why they're getting away with it. These humiliation rituals, these things, these kids just being taken. You know that even in this child trafficking series thing that I did on my channel, the girl was talking about how some of the pimps, what they will do is they'll go and pick kids up from school. The schools will even be in on it. They'll go and pick kids up from school. At the start of the day, the teachers will still mark them in. The kids will be taken to wherever and whatever through these underground tunnels or even not, and been brought back before the end of the day. So then when they go home with their parents, Your parents never know any different. And then the parents come home stressed and tired from work. Your kid looks disheveled and you haven't got any time, and you actually realize too late that you actually didn't want to be a parent. You actually hate your kids, right? So you're not even paying attention. You're just assuming that they're just naughty out of nowhere. There's just stuff coming out from nowhere. So you don't want to have to deal with them, and you just punish them. So they're even less likely to come and speak out to you about what they've been through. Or they end up in the wrong crowd, or they end up starting to take drugs, or they end up starting to do all sorts of things, all different types of symptoms of people who've been through abuse, but you can't even see it because you're too busy, because now you're the one who's also not interested because you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're busy defending yourself, right? And so the kids are just like, well, also I didn't ask to be here. I talk about that with the Lord all the time. I'm like, Lord, listen, that's why I'm scared to have kids, to be honest with you guys, because I'm the one who chooses to bring them into this world. They didn't ask, they're not going to ask to be here. So I don't ever want, and no child deserves to ever feel like some kind of a burden that was enforced upon, because it was us who were having probably the most enjoyable experience as a human, having sex with somebody else to bring them into this world, just to then treat them like a burden. That's the most demonic thing I've ever heard in my life. So you were happy to be enjoying yourself and you're enjoying yourself, but now that you have to deal with the consequences of your actions, now you want to be bitter about it. Are you kidding me? Like, this is what I can't stand. I honestly can't stand a lot of people in society today, because I'm like, listen, and then we say, oh, but we want to protect the kids. We care about the kids. Oh, well, crimes against kids are horrible. It's like, shut up. You don't actually care, because if you did, you would conduct yourself differently. If you did, you would be listening. If you did, when we hear stories, we would trust it. We would believe people. If we did, people like P. Diddy wouldn't be getting away with it. People like P. Diddy wouldn't be getting away with it. But why is he? Because we're so busy instead ignoring, hating kids, being selfish. Because that's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. And then even these humiliation rituals, these people now, they don't want to speak up. Why? Same thing, similar reasons. Selfishness. They don't want to have to be seen to do the things they did. They'd rather let somebody they know is consistently and continually abusing other people. They would rather allow that than put themselves in the situation where they have to be exposed for who they really are, or where they have to ruffle feathers. I realized the same exact thing when I was talking to this detective, because I was thinking to myself, the more and more we were talking about a lot of stuff, the more and more I was thinking, you know what? There's so many things in my life that I never spoke up about for myself, the things that I've been through. And I never really thought about the fact that when I don't go to the police, when I don't go and speak up and make a big kerfuffle of the things that have happened to me, I'm not even protecting myself. Not only am I not protecting myself, I'm leaving myself to be reoffended, which is exactly what happens, by the way. And then second of all, I'm leaving that person out on the streets to roam the world, or those people, to go and have another victim. So it's actually so selfish of me to have even not said and gone to, law enforcement or whatever about so many of these things, to have not been prepared to ruffle the feathers. And as somebody who has had to ruffle feathers for certain reasons and has had to be isolated as a whole, I know the feeling of how horrible all of that is. But then I'm thinking, well, this is what's necessary for us to actually make the world a better place. We're here saying, we want to make the world a better place by like climate change and this, that, and the other. So we're going to do every single other thing other than protecting the human race itself. And that's what, for me, is the craziest thing about us as humans today. Like, we protect everything other than the human race itself. Like, we'll justify, like, we don't want to kill the animals, but killing babies, go for it. Oh, that's off the table. That's on the table. Killing animals, though, oh no. How could you kill the animal? The animals have personalities and animals have this and that. But the baby that's in your womb doesn't. Okay, we're going to make the planet a better place, but we're also going to ignore the sick and twisted predators that exist on this planet, right? And so we're just basically, are we making the world a better place for people like P. Diddy? I just want us to make it make sense. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If life's a game, let's play to win. God bless you all, and I'll see you in my next one.